Welcome to the deep dive. You sent us this really insightful recording. It's from a workforce management webinar back in October 2024.
Right.
And what really jumped out was the focus on, practical solutions, stuff happening right now in customer operations.
Yeah, actionable things.
Exactly. So our mission here is to pull out those valuable nuggets for you, the key trends, the real challenges people are facing, and the actual strategies they talked about.
And the speakers were Olivier Pellizzine, who founded OswegO,
Right, the consulting firm.
Remy Taperel, a performance optimization consultant, and Guillaume Mass, who's head of WFM for Connecta in the French-speaking market.
That's a great mix of perspectives. You've got Olivier with that high-level view, the consulting background, the frameworks.
He built that WFM guide they mentioned and the audit tool, OswegOaudit.com.
Then Remy with, over 25 years? Deep practical experience in customer relationship management. He's seen it all on the ground.
Absolutely. Decades of it.
And Guillaume, he's actually doing it, managing WFM for, thousands of agents at Connecta. So that's the real-world implementation angle.
It gives you the theory, the long-term practice, and the current large-scale application. A really solid foundation for the discussion.
Yeah, and this webinar, it was actually a follow-up, wasn't it, to Olivier's WFM guide that came out summer 2024.
That's right. The idea was to create a space, which apparently doesn't happen often.
Surprisingly, yeah.
A space just for WFM folks in customer operations to connect and talk about what's relevant now.
So the original audience was really the WFM community itself, people in the trenches, day to day.
And connecting this to the bigger picture, it really shows how valuable it is for WFM pros to share what they're learning,
Totally.
So the webinar and what we're digging into for you today, it really hits on two main themes. First, how do you balance those operational needs
It's constraints, yeah.
with keeping your employees engaged?
Which is
Critical.
Yeah.
And second, how does focusing on WFM ultimately help the customer experience?
makes sense. Okay, so roadmap time. What are we covering? The webinar kicked off looking at how you can evaluate your own WFM practices.
Sort of benchmarking yourself.
Exactly. Then they dove into the big challenges right now, especially that tricky balance between efficiency and quality of work life.
Always a tough one.
And finally, Guillaume from Connecta shared some really specific examples, some inspiration from how they do things.
That's a good flow. Know where you are, understand the problems, then see how others are solving them. Practical.
Right. So let's start with that first part, evaluating WFM practices.
Olivier Pellizzine led this bit.
Yeah, and his key point was empowering WFM teams, letting you assess your own stuff without always needing consultants.
Building that internal muscle, basically,
hey.
which is valuable, right?
Yeah.
Because external folks don't always get your specific context.
Good point. His approach is about fostering that self-awareness within the team itself.
So how do you do that? How do you know what good looks like?
Well, he talked about identifying best practices. He mentioned industry bodies like COPC for contact centers. They set performance standards.
And also ISO, HDI, that's the Help Desk Institute, and ANF, a French group.
Yeah.
These places define best practices, even set targets, like for forecast accuracy.
Okay, so external benchmarks.
He also stressed looking internally, observing trends in your organization, seeing what actually works for you.
That mix is key. Standards give you a baseline, but you have to adapt it. Internal observation lets you customize.
And here's where it gets really practical for you listening. Olivier presented OswegO's own framework. He called it a referential.
Okay.
It's 36 specific best practices for WFM in customer ops. And apparently, they even had experts like Guillaume review them.
So vetted practices, how are they organized?
Neatly, actually,
Yeah.
under the four main WFM processes: forecasting, predicting the work,
Yep.
dimensioning, figuring out the resources needed,
How many people, basically?
planning, making the schedules, and flow management, the real-time stuff.
That covers the whole cycle.
He broke it down roughly about 10 for forecasting, maybe 12 for dimensioning, which he said sometimes gets overlooked. Interesting.
0.9 for planning and 5 for flow management.
Having it categorized like that makes it much easier to assess when
Yeah.
you make sure you're hitting all the key areas.
Definitely. So you've got this list of 36 practices. How do you figure out where you stand?
Right, the how-to.
Olivier used a model from learning and development. You might know this, the stages. Unconscious incompetence, you don't know what you don't know. Conscious incompetence, you realize you need to improve.
Okay, awareness dawns.
Conscious competence, you're doing it, but it takes effort. And then unconscious competence, it's second nature, expertise.
That's a great way to think about WFM maturity. It's a journey, not a switch you flip. Knowing your stage helps you target improvement.
He also mentioned using methods like Lean and TQM, those process improvement ideas. They apply directly to WFM ops.
Makes sense. Continuous improvement.
But for the practical self-check against those 36 practices, he laid out 4 levels. Simple.
Okay, what are they?
Level 1, not implemented. Point 0. Level 2, implementation in progress. You're thinking about it or just starting.
Got it.
Level 3, implemented, it's up and running, been there a while. And level 4, continuous improvement. You're actively reviewing, tweaking, making it better.
That 4-level scale is really tangible. It's not just yes, no. It gives you nuance about where you are on each practice.
So the idea is you rate yourself on all 36. Then you visualize it, get a clear picture of strengths, weaknesses.
Like a dashboard for your WFM health.
Exactly. And from that picture, you build your action plans. Focus your efforts where they're needed most.
That visualization is so important. Turns an abstract assessment into a clear roadmap. You see where to go next.
And Olivier actually mentioned a tool they built, OswegOAudit.com.
Ah, the application.
Yeah, designed to help you do this self-assessment. It
Yeah.
covers WFM, other areas too. He listed some companies using it: Ledger, ODEU, Care Services, NG.
Having a dedicated tool definitely makes it easier, streamlines the whole process, shows they're serious about making it accessible.
So a quick recap of that self-assessment piece. Understand the benchmarks. Use the 4-level method for the THUM6 practices. Get that visual report.
And critically, he linked it back to their WFM guide.
Right.
The guide provides concrete examples for those best practices. It bridges the theory and the how-to.
Makes perfect sense. Okay, let's shift gears. Let's talk about the current challenges in WFM. Remy Tapero took this section.
Yeah, Remy's overview. He talked about the main themes, the requests he's getting now in 2024.
And interestingly, he said these aren't just contact center problems, they're popping up in other industries, service businesses.
That's a key takeaway. WFM principles are becoming more universal as everyone focuses on customer experience and efficiency.
So he listed his top 5 challenges. Number 1, and this is probably hitting home for many of you listening,
I bet.
it's balancing employee expectations for flexibility with what the business actually needs.
The big squeeze.
He really flagged new generations, post-COVID habits. They're driving this huge demand for flexibility. It's becoming table stakes for attracting and keeping people.
It really is.
Yeah.
Finding that sweet spot between flexibility and operational reality is, well, the core challenge for a lot of places right now.
Second on his list, dealing with fluctuating demand, especially peaks.
The classic WFM problem.
Yeah, but he said it's not just handling more demand, it's also adapting when demand drops, especially if you're seasonal.
Good point. You need levers for both directions, ups and downs. Efficient resource use is key, managing costs effectively.
Okay, third challenge, modeling and dimensioning, especially with omni-channel complexity.
Ah, the complexity monster.
He felt planning and real-time management are often more mature.
Yeah, people have been doing that longer.
But modeling and dimensioning, they face new hurdles. You've got all these channels: voice, email, back office, async, social, chat, SMS.
The list goes on.
And often, not much historical data for the newer ones makes forecasting tricky.
Absolutely. Omnichannel is great for customers,
Yep.
but it seriously complicates forecasting and resource allocation. Lack of data for new channels is a real headache.
Fourth challenge, adapting the organization to tech changes, specifically AI.
The AI wave.
Following on from self-service, AI is shifting the work human agents do. They're handling more complex, higher-value interactions.
Right. The easy stuff gets automated.
Which means you need to redesign things, organizational structures, roles.
AI is changing the nature of the agent's job. More complex problem-solving needed. So WFM strategy has to rethink job roles, skills, everything.
And number 5, rounding out his list, adherence and planning.
Still important, but
But maybe not the absolute top concern right now, Remy suggested. His reasoning was interesting. He thinks getting super precise forecasts is just getting harder.
because things are so dynamic.
Yeah, so maybe there's a greater need now for overall operational flexibility to handle those unpredictable flows rather than just sticking rigidly to the plan.
That's a fascinating thought. A potential shift from pure adherence towards agility and responsiveness reflects today's unpredictability.
Yeah, across all 5 challenges, that need for agility in schedules, forecasts, even adapting to AI, it really stands out.
It's the common thread. Be more flexible, be more responsive. Okay, so challenges laid out. What about solutions? practical stuff.
Right. Remy shared two really good use cases, real-world examples of tackling these things.
Excellent. Always good to see theory and practice.
First one, an internal contact center, about 60 employees, pretty standard setup Monday to Friday, 9 to 7, basic two-shift schedule.
Okay, relatable size? What were their issues?
Main things. Employees wanted more flexibility, they had busy peaks at the start and end of the day, and they struggled with occasional needs for extra staff.
Sounds familiar. Even in simpler operations, flexibility and peaks are common headaches.
So Remy's proposed solution was pretty cool. They moved to a 4-day week
Oh, interesting.
with slightly longer shifts, 9 hours. They also created a pool of RTO days, requested time off,
How did they generate those?
from a small increase in total weekly hours. And they added an on-call system for some rest days just to cover those peaks.
That's a clever combo. 4-day week hits flexibility, RTO pool adds last-minute wiggle room, on-call tackles the peaks directly. Multi-pronged.
And the results? Pretty good, apparently.
Yeah.
Better coverage during those busy open and closing times. More last-minute flexibility for staff via RTOs.
Nice.
Plus, the on-call system gave them extra cover when needed. And interestingly, better productivity during the midday hours, which used to be overstaffed.
So a real win-win. Happier employees, more efficient operation. Proof that restructuring can work.
Okay, second use case. Totally different scale. 600-employee BPO contact center.
Big operation.
6 days a week, 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. They were using a 20-win rotating shift schedule.
Oof, those would be tough on staff.
Yeah, main pain points. Employees weren't happy with the lack of schedule stability, hard to match staffing to the daily workload precisely, and not much flexibility for unexpected stuff.
A more complex beast.
Yeah.
Rotating schedules, large-scale BPO pressures. Okay, what was the fix?
They moved to a shift bidding system.
Ah, giving employees some choice.
Exactly. Quarterly, employees bid on preferred fixed schedules. They had about 15 options covering different days and times.
More stability, more control for the agents. What about flexibility for the company?
Good question. They created 4 dedicated flying teams.
Oh, the floaters.
Basically, yeah, for built-in flexibility. And they added bonuses for people who voluntarily took last-minute schedule changes.
Okay, so bidding for stability, flying teams for agility, bonuses for extra flex, addresses all the pain points.
And the results were impressive. Better staff alignment to workload, thanks to the flying teams. They actually quantified a 10% increase in peak management flexibility.
Wow, measurable improvement.
And they cut overstaffing costs. But here's the clever bit. They reinvested those savings into the modification bonuses.
So cost neutral.
Pretty much. Cost-neutral improvement that boosted flexibility for everyone, employees, and the company.
That's a fantastic example. Smart scheduling design, improving efficiency and engagement without breaking the bank. Really insightful.
Now, let's bring in Guillaume Mass from Connecta. His whole angle was about putting employees right at the center.
The human-centered approach. Crucial.
For him, WFM isn't just spreadsheets. It's a tool to boost employee engagement and their experience while still balancing profit and client needs.
That's the ideal, isn't it? Recognizing that happy, engaged staff deliver better service. It's foundational.
He talked about Connecta's collaborative approach right from the start, before planning.
Proactive engagement.
Yeah, seeking input, communicating why things are happening, offering levers like agent preferences, chosen time off, maybe telecommuting.
Giving them some agency.
Proactive vacation requests, respecting availability constraints, within reason, of course.
That upfront involvement builds buy-in, makes people feel heard, part of the process.
So valuable.
Then, during planning, they use all the optimization levers, skills-based routing, different schedule types, patterns, rotations. We've touched on some of that.
The technical toolkit.
And after planning, tools to help employees. Agent portals for checking schedules, swapping shifts, self-service auction.
Overtime sign-ups, even electronic signatures for time tracking to cut down on pay issues. And get this, they use gamification too.
Gamification in WFM. Interesting. To make it more engaging.
Seems like it. Make the whole experience less transactional.
That's innovative. Empowering employees with tools like portals and swap options gives them control. Gamification adds another layer of engagement. Smart.
Guillaume shared some specific Connecta examples too. He stressed combining multiple levers, different schedules, part-time, pooling resources, managing sync and async channels using AI assistant.
A holistic strategy.
He said this comprehensive approach got their workload alignment way up. Efficiency went from 65% in 2016 to 85% in 2024.
That is a massive jump.
Huge. And he said it didn't just help efficiency, it positively impacted quality, productivity, turnover, team engagement. The whole package.
That really proves the power of a strategic, data-driven WFM approach. Combining techniques, using tech smartly,
Yeah.
the results speak for themselves.
Another specific point, flexibility around lunch breaks.
Oh, it's the little things that matter.
They're actively trying to balance what employees prefer, maybe longer breaks, with operational needs, using data to find the optimal duration.
Even small details like breaks impact satisfaction and efficiency. Using data makes those decisions smarter, more balanced.
He also talked about amplitude and flexibility, tackling the yo-yo effect, those highly variable schedules that drive people nuts.
Yeah, inconsistency is stressful.
So they implemented basic morning, midday, evening rotations, more consistency, more predictable patterns. He said it boosted engagement without hurting coverage or efficiency.
Predictability reduces stress, improves work-life balance, leads to better engagement and retention. Makes total sense.
Then Olivier actually brought up the 4-day work week. Hot topic.
Bound to come up. What did Remy say?
He acknowledged it's growing in France, but urged caution for contact centers. Said you need a really thorough analysis of your flows first.
Sensible. It's not a simple plug-and-play solution.
He also pointed out it might not suit all activities or all employees. Like 9 hours straight on the phone, that's tough.
Very true. The nature of the work matters. Need to consider employee well-being and the specific operational demands. Deep analysis is non-negotiable.
Remy also suggested alternatives, like 4.5 days or maybe alternating 4-day weeks.
More flexible options.
Yeah, ways to get longer weekends without the potential strain of 9-hour days all the time. His main point, the 4-day week is one model, not the solution. Not always scalable across a whole center.
Right. Offer a menu of options. Cater to different needs, different preferences while meeting business needs. That flexibility is a competitive edge for talent.
And Olivier added another angle, competitive pressure within companies.
How so?
If other departments, admin, HR, finance, adopt a 4-day week, it creates expectations among contact center staff. WFM leaders need to be ready for that conversation.
Internal equity. That's a really important point. What happens elsewhere in the company impacts expectations everywhere. Need to be prepared.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the webinar,
Right.
What are the main takeaways that really stick out for you?
I think the biggest thing was that constant theme, balancing operational efficiency with employee well-being. It's critical in modern WFM.
Finding that balance, yeah.
And the keys to doing that seem to be proactive engagement, exploring flexible schedule models thoughtfully, and using technology smartly.
And that idea of self-assessment, continuous improvement, always looking at how you can do better.
Definitely. Don't just set it and forget it.
Absolutely. So for you listening, the call to action is really to reflect. Think about your own WFM practices. Use the frameworks, the examples we talked about.
See where you stand, maybe identify 1 or 2 areas to focus on.
And if you want to keep the conversation going, check out the OswegO LinkedIn group. Good place for community discussion.
Share experiences, learn from others.
And remember that satisfaction survey the webinar mentioned. Your feedback helps shape future deep dives on topics you care about.
This really drove home that WFM isn't just numbers. It's fundamentally about people, collaboration, communication, embracing flexibility.
Yeah.
That's how you get engaged, satisfy teams, and meet your goals.
Well said. And on that note, here's a final thought for you to chew on. The world of work, employee expectations, they're always changing, right? So how can you proactively weave flexibility and real engagement into your WFM strategy? Not just to hit today's targets, but to build a workforce that's thriving, resilient, and ready to drive your success tomorrow. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.